What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party.
1, 2, 3 in the place to be. You're now rocking with the BKMC, the MCEO, Talib Kweli. This is the world's best podcast, The People's Party. One love to everybody who stuck it out with us through the pandemic lockdown. We were on Zoom. We tried to bring you the best quality content we could. We worked very hard. Shout out to my staff and my crew who worked very hard. Shout out to my man Steve Vasquez, our director. And I got my lovely and talented co-host Jasmine Lee in the place to be. What's up, Jasmine? How you feeling?
Woo! I'm doing good.
And we back. No doubt. Now we're gonna start off with a bang since we back live.
Yes.
And we're gonna get it live and get right into it. This guest that we have today is a self-described art rapper. Music journalist Jeff Weiss once said that this artist invokes James Baldwin and They Might Be Giants at the same time. I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly what he said, but it was something to that effect. He is a podcaster, a performer, a wordsmith, an actor, maybe even a comedian. Try not to put any boundaries or limitations on what this man does. He has a bunch of his own groups that he started. There was Thirsty Fish. There was the Swim Team. There was the Unapologetic Art Rap album. There was Rappers Will Die of Natural Causes. There was Brick Body Kids Still Daydream. I'm going to turn the page here because this man's accolades is too much for one goddamn page. Uproxx, speaking about that album, said, with his razor-sharp wit and sense of observation, he has created a concept album that actually executes without sacrificing quality or becoming any less listenable. Fans of cascading rhymes and rewind button crushing wordplay will appreciate that his gifted gab remains refreshingly or stubbornly intact in the era of stripped down cadences. In 2020, his release Anime Trauma and Divorce received similar acclaim. Tim Sense of Beats Per Minute said, self-help rap record that managed to be heartbreaking and humorous at the same time and never takes its audience for granted. But what's self-care anyway? We're going to get into that too. Successful podcaster. I crept into his space because this man loves podcasting, including what had happened was, which dives into the career of a single artist. It was Prince Paul first, then it was LP. These are people who was popping when I started my career, so you know I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the People's Party, Open Mike Eagle.
Wow. We back.
No doubt.
Definitely the best introduction I've ever had. The most page turns in an introduction.
No doubt. People have started to really appreciate the introductions that we do at the show, so I try to make them. I try to lean into it more, but now we have so many pages.
Page-turning intro.
Page-turning intros. What's up, Mike?
What's happening, man? I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
First time we've met.
This is.
I feel like we have a lot of people in common.
We have plenty mutual boys and girls.
I feel like this conversation was long overdue.
Likewise.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you are like a podcast, like virtuoso at this point.
Yeah, I've done a bunch.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of
And
podcasts.
so that's the journalism space, and you and I spoke off camera about my love for journalism and why I do it. So I need you to forgive me for committing a journalistic faux pas and starting this interview with a reference to your Wikipedia. Okay? I want you to know that I know better than to do that, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Word.
Your Wikipedia describes you as a rapper/comedian.
It does.
Is that how you see yourself?
You know, I resist the term comedian, and not because I don't, not for any disinterest or disrespect or anything like that, because the reason I resist calling myself that is because I respect craft a lot. That's in any endeavor, rhyming, podcasting, whatever. And so comedians, and I know a lot of comedians, they don't even believe they're good until they've been doing open mics and live rooms for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, and I've never done that. I've never got into an open mic and just wrote out a bunch of jokes and did it. Like, I've never done comedy really without music to hold me up. So I respect that craft a little too much to really embrace that term. But the other side of that is that I do have to be practical about how people see me and my work too. So I don't call myself a comedian, but when other people do, you know, I'm not mad at it.
That was so interesting to me because, like you, I am a rapper who hangs out with a lot of comedians.
Yeah.
And like you, I respect craft. I DJ now, but for a long time, I didn't refer to myself as a DJ because I have so much respect for the craft. I'm like, look, I'm a celebrity DJ or I'm a selector.
Right.
You know, I'm not DJ Scratch or Rich Medina.
Exactly.
You know, and people need to know the difference.
They do.
And I think I just saw Bob Saget at I've been staying at Yellow Springs with Dave Chappelle and them, and Bob Saget was on stage and he brings a guitar into his act, and one of his jokes is that musical comedy is the lowest form. So I get that, and I had a feeling you were gonna give that answer because as I explore your work, I don't see you presenting yourself as a comedian.
Right.
The closest you've come is the Comedy Central show, but even when I look at what you did with that show, it's largely rap videos, and I see you presenting yourself as a rapper. Like and when I read your interviews, you're talking about the hip hop community, and it's great that you can tour with Hannibal and you got all these comedian friends. You can lean into that, and the best rappers. I mean, we trying to come up with punchlines, right? That's a comedy
and
term.
that's honestly that's where the whole thing comes from because it really starts with me putting out my album Dark Comedy, right? Because that's when I'm seeing how what I do in some sense is the same as what a stand-up does. You're making observations and you're trying to come up with punchlines. I'm doing the same thing. I'm watching people. I'm getting a premise, right? And where they take a premise and they want to write a long joke, I take a premise and want to write a song from it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
within that song, it's just a lot of setup, punchline, setup. That's how I learned how to rhyme.
Yeah.
You know?
Sitting around with these comedians all summer, Ali Wong, Michelle Wolf, Donnell Rollins, Mo Amer, Dave, we were comparing comedy hooks versus hip-hop hooks. It's like, well, what's your hook? Donnell Rollins is, Ashy Larry is a hook for him.
Right.
That's a hit
Yeah.
for him, and it's very interesting. Jasmine is a comedian.
I could tell.
Can you tell? Do I look
course.
funny, huh?
No, see, that's that razor
Damn.
sharp wit right there.
It's a gift and a curse, this razor sharp wit.
And Jasmine, I met Jasmine through Jeff Ross, who's a comedian, and that's even like our origin story. She was talking about the comedians from Chicago when we were upstairs.
Yes.
Talking about how, from Bernie Mac on to D-Ray to Deion Cole to Hannibal to, Lil Rel, and even the white comedians with the Second City. There's something special about Chicago with the comedy. But there's another side of Chicago that gets weaponized. And that's the violence and the gang life and racists and people and interlopers and people who don't understand the histories of our community often try to use Chicago as a political football.
Right.
Now, you grew up in Robert Taylor homes. Robert Taylor was an activist, first black chairman of Chicago Housing Authority. And Robert Taylor Homes, for what I understand, was meant to house 11,000 people, but at the end of the day ended up housing like 30,000.
30,000,
God damn.
yeah.
Which is, that's a lot more than 11,000.
Yeah. They didn't add no more buildings. They just
That's
added
right.
people.
It's just added people.
Yeah.
So Mr. T is from there. Corey Holcomb is from there. You're from there. That project, just like Cabrini Green, became notorious for gang violence, Mickey Cobra's, Black Disciples, GDs. How did your experience with gentrification and housing discrimination shape you as an artist?
Well, just to clarify first, right? So I didn't necessarily grow up in the Robert Taylors. I grew up about a mile away from there in this other neighborhood called Lake Meadows. But my first cousins, my grandmother raised me. Her sister and their entire line lived in the Robert Taylor, so we was there all the time. That was just its own separate world. There was its own separate community, its own separate culture, and it was hella dangerous. Like, what my main memories of it was the danger, but that's where my peoples live. So that's where we were, you go into people's apartments there and each one of them felt like a different world. Like I remember like velvet paintings and, and my aunt had a painting it was a velvet painting that had lights in it. So you plug it into the wall. I think it was like a Last Supper with little light bulbs in it.
That's how you know you're really black if your people's had a velvet painting.
For real.
We interviewing Terrence. My favorite Terrence Martin album is called Velvet Portraits.
Yeah.
I know what he's trying to convey with that title.
So I guess I'm not black. I've never even seen a velvet painting.
That must be old.
Yeah,
It must be
I
old
think
as shit.
it's probably before your time.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
before
I'm
your
Copper
only
coasters,
21,
velvet paintings, and an ill vinyl collection. If
Yes.
your people's had the ill vinyl collection with a velvet painting and the black light, that's how you know they partied in that house.
But yeah, man, I grew up on the South Side, and my mom moved a lot. So we, when I was living with my mom, we lived all over the South Side, and my distinction, what I take away from that is a lot of it is baked in to hip hop for me, because that's how I learned how to rap at a lighthouse on 55th and the Lakefront called Promontory Point, where cats that was all city and graph breaking, MCing. Couldn't nobody really afford tables, but it was a few DJs. But we would all meet there Tuesdays and Thursdays, and everybody be rhyming, everybody be breaking, everybody be sharing their pieces. But what I learned there specifically that relates to artistry is that there was a South Side way of rhyming, and there was a West Side way of rhyming in Chicago. And the West Side was more like double time, crucial conflict, do or die, like
Twister,
gangster shit, right? But the South Side, it was more about being witty and having punchlines. And so, like, when I started rhyming, and I freestyled for, I kicked my first rhyme probably in 96. I didn't write a song really until like 2002.
Wow.
So my whole early training was just being on street corners, battling. Like freestyling, battling, off the head, trying to wow all of the homies with the wildest punchlines we could think of and just waiting for somebody to step to it so we could get into it.
Yeah.
But I think that still pervades my style today, like that way of constructing rhymes where you're like trying to think of the most potent thing to say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And set it up and deliver it and keep delivering and keep delivering.
I love freestyling because it's so much like roast battling.
Yes.
You're literally just sitting there thinking of punchlines, evil punchlines to say.
Absolutely.
But I moved from Roosevelt, a neighborhood with gangs, to LA, a neighborhood notorious for gangs. Shout out the Jays. And you moved from Chicago to LA. So could you explain the difference between Chicago gang culture and LA gang culture?
So what I market by initially is, especially because I'm coming into a new place, is I'm trying to figure out what you don't do, right? In Chicago, what you don't do is wear your hat in a certain direction. You don't wear it to the right, you don't wear it to the left unless that's the flag you flying, right?
Oh, wow.
And out here, of course, it's colors, but it's the same thing. Like you don't wear all red, you don't wear all blue unless that's the impression you're trying to make on people. So that's my first distinction that I draw. I think, see, my memory of coming up in Chicago is that, like, so to take it back to the hip hop thing, we in Hyde Park is a neighborhood where we're rhyming at, which is a little bit more affluent pocket of the South Side. And we also take on the uniform of the hip hopper. So wearing wild shit to high school, like ski goggles, and North Face jackets, and
so people in the street be like, "Oh, he hip hop."
Exactly.
Right.
So it was a different uniform. So and it kind of set us apart and let everybody know that we wasn't on that. We was on our own thing. What I noticed about LA, especially because I came here and embedded myself in Project Blowed, which is smack in the middle of South LA.
That's right.
And it's like on an almost dividing line between a couple of different hoods. There was a lot of gang energy in that very artsy space. And it wasn't the kind of thing where people just assumed you wasn't on it just because you was dressed weird. Like, it could go off. And there's a lot of, I think, territorialism that's baked into South LA culture from people who survived that era.
Inner city boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for me to even stake out the space and create the space that I made in Project Blowed, it was hard fought because I was an outsider. And they don't take the outsiders well because that was life or death for them in the 90s and the 2000s.
What I do, because I live in a blood neighborhood and I have a dog with a blue tail, I make sure whenever I'm walking him, I have a big ass smile on my face so they know I'm not about that life.
There you go. There you go.
Does that work?
Oh yeah, I'm good. I'm good in the hood.
I'm gonna try that.
Smile saves
I don't
lives.
think it's gonna work for you, tell him, but for me, I'm good.
Why does your
Right.
dog have a blue tail?
Because he asked for it.
Okay. All right. See, that only leads to more questions.
He's gay. He likes to show his expression.
You got a gay dog with a blue tail?
That
Yes.
talks.
An answer for shit. That's like some David Berkowitz.
Shout out Bentley J. He's the best.
Yeah, shout out that dog. Now, you made an album inspired by Robert Taylor Holmes,
Right.
Brick Body Kids Still Daydream. That song, Brick Body Complex, that hook resonated with me in a special way. Don't call me nigga, a rapper. My motherfucking name is Mike Eagle. I'm sovereign. I'm from a line of ghetto superheroes. Listening to your music, the superhero thing comes up over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
And that means a lot to me because I see myself as a superhero. I see my writing and my lyricism as like a superpower. We interviewed DMC and he broke down he was like, yo, running them want to be famous. I want to be a superhero. So if you listen to all my lyrics, it's like devastating. It's like I'm using incredible, mighty. He said, I saw myself as the mighty Thor. And the way I rhyme, I was trying to be Thor on stage. When you go back and listen, you're like, that's exactly
Wow.
what he was trying to do. just go through it. There's a superhero reference or information with Kool-Aid D,
Yeah.
who's a favorite of mine. I think that you and his style goes very well together.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Feel at Home on that Brick Body is another superhero reference. Very Much Money might be my favorite song by you because it's like the perfect mix of deepness and funny shit and musicality. I'm like, yo, that's the song for me if I wanted to introduce somebody to Open Mike Eagle. But even on that, you say all my friends are superheroes. But the most nuanced superhero reference you've made and one that resonated with me the most was on Sweatpants Spider-Man. Because I loved Into the Spider-Verse.
Right.
And I love that version of Peter Parker. And as someone who's in his 40s, and as someone who has questioned the way I look on stage, the way I feel, is, my knees feel different.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I still own my superhero shit. So Sweatpants Spider-Man is a way to, I'm still a superhero, but I'm also human, and I also have these flaws, and break some of that down.
I mean, so I literally turned 40 at the end of 2020. And, when you turn 40 in rap music, that's a conversation you got to have with yourself, because this has always been a young person's profession. The industry always turns that way. And there is a thing about feeling vital. There's a thing about feeling like you don't have as much energy as you used to. Your body changes. You see yourself on stage. You see 100 pictures of yourself all the time. You're like, oh, okay. And then you start seeing pictures from 15 years ago. Like, wow, wait a minute, that was me. And I have had to have a series of conversations with myself about what that reality meant for me. I'm not only 40 in a rapper, I'm 40 in like an indie rapper. Like, am I prepared to continue scrapping and struggling the same way I have the last 10, 15 years for another 10 or 15 more? I don't know, just like, and so when I saw that movie too, Into the Spider-Verse, when I saw the Sweatpants Peter, like that resonated with me too. Cause like, yes, this is a character that has abilities, but it's based on a human that would eventually get old, and that person has to have that conversation with themselves about like, what does this part of adulthood mean for me? Am I going to do the exact same things I've been doing? Am I going to make some adjustments? How much, or at some point, does it come about me being comfortable, So can I rock the sweatpants over my, you know what I'm saying? Over my costume? It's like, though, it's just those questions.
Your friends start buying different sneakers for different reasons. Yeah. Like your friend, what are those? They
sneakers.
Comfortable.
Right.
What?
So it reminds me of you in Miami trying to find your running sneakers.
Oh yeah.
There you go. I might have to get some Velcro joints.
I was in Miami running.
Yeah.
That's what we was doing.
Yeah, exercise. It all becomes a very different conversation after a certain point. And I just wanted to make a really real song because it also coincides with like my marriage dissolving, and so like all of this is conversion at once for me. And I just wanted to have a song where I really sat and like made a song out of those real dark ass feelings, and try to put that in a context based on the superhero thing, which I also believe for myself.
Yeah.
I feel like we all have that conversation like every time you hit like an age milestone, because I had that at 30, even though I'm 21. But anywho, you attended Southern Illinois University
Yes, ma'am.
for psychology at the same time as Hannibal Buress.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about Hannibal Buress. Shout out to him. I love Hannibal, but I go to the Dime a lot.
Wait. You told us a story about you getting into a situation at Dime with Michael Che. What's up with you and the Dime?
Listen, I feel like you're judging me right now, and it does not feel good. So I got suspended for having an altercation with somebody, neither here nor there. We both were regulars, so he suspended us both. He told me I had a month suspension. So 3 weeks in, all of my homeboys, Rel, a bunch of people, they were going to the Dime. So I was like, let me just try and smuggle myself in. So I get there, and the bouncer was like, nah, you got a week left. So I'm standing outside. Hannibal Buress comes outside. He's like, what are you doing out here? And I was like, I'm suspended. Are you going to let me in? He was like, nah, I don't know what you got kicked out for.
That's a very Hannibal answer.
That's also the correct answer.
So that's one of your good homies.
That's my guy, yeah.
Okay, so what is it that you saw in him that you guys connected in college and built this lifelong friendship?
So I was there like the week he started comedy. Like he was just a dude on campus. Like we was all just dudes on campus. So I was like a rap dude on campus, but he was just a dude. And he was always witty, he was always funny, but you know, we witnessed him taking that, you know, that talent and starting to apply it to going on stage, and then he never stopped. And so then we used to have these events on and around campus where we all just got together, and it was like an open mic and you could do whatever you wanted. Like, I used to rhyme or do spoken word stuff. You know, we had homies that used to sing. Somebody came in there and read a term paper once. It was ridiculous, for real. But Hannibal used to just do his comedy. He used to host and do comedy. And that's kind of, we all just linked together based on this shared creative space we were making. With him, it was just so wild to see him start doing it. We knew he was still doing it around the country, and I was still keeping in touch with him. And he went to New York, and like it like wasn't going good at first, you know, like and like he was living rough out there at
Eric,
first.
right?
Yeah, but then like you know he starts writing. He gets that gig writing for Saturday Night Live. And then, like, you just watch everything start to change. And I had never seen nothing like that. It's just been wild. And you know, I can definitely say, for him being probably the most, like, famous person that I know really personally, he's never changed. He's never changed in none of these years.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Hannibal. He is the person who introduced me to you as an artist. He has done this show. He's been a good friend. He's a great guy.
Yeah, for real.
You told me a story about doing a show with Common and Most that I was at.
Yeah.
And this was a show in Chicago with, and shout out to All Natural as well.
Yeah, this is my first concert experience. This is the first show I ever went to in my life.
Right, okay, so you were attending this show.
Attending the show. Yeah.
And after this show, me, Common, Hatek, and Yasin Bey created Respiration in Chicago at Streeterville Studios
so
that night.
wild.
So you were there that night.
Yeah, man.
That's wild.
That's amazing to me. When you put me onto that before we
That's
started
wild.
talking.
Now, Common's mom's a school teacher. Donda West, rest in peace, was a school teacher. My mom's a school teacher. I really have an affinity for rappers who are teachers or who come from school teachers.
So many.
Shout out to D Smoke. Shout out to Knife Wonder. Shout out to Sadat X.
Defari.
Defari.
Oh,
Defari
man.
was like the first rapper teacher. Dude.
Yeah, he put it forward. I remember
Yeah.
reading interviews with him because
Yeah.
I think he was like doing both at the same time. But
And you did that, right?
Not really.
Okay.
I guess my first crew I was in, Thirsty Fish. I was still teaching and rapping at night then. That's true. Because I used to have to rap in my work clothes sometimes. It was
Okay.
a bad
Oh,
look.
dang.
It was real bad. It wasn't.
I'm thinking about when I started, and your name is Open Mike, and I used to do open mics at Inkiru Books. There was a dude named, called himself Gordon Gartrell, after the Cosby Show character, but he would come like dressed as Gordon Gartrell.
That's dope.
But it's that type of open mic scene.
Yeah.
It's like people coming in, you know, the open mic starts at 7. You might have got off of work at 5. That type
You
of
got to
shit.
go straight to it.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. You know, my button up and my, you know.
Did you have your badge on, your teacher's badge?
See, I didn't have a badge. It wasn't that type of situation. But I definitely didn't look like I belonged there. You know, that was definitely popping.
In 1994, I had an apartment in Brooklyn, and my roommate at the time shows up, goes to the store to get a Dutch Master at 7 a.m., and comes back with Mike and Nine from the Freestyle Fellowship.
Wow.
And at that time, I could count the Freestyle Fellowship as probably my favorite group, along with like De La and Tribe Called Quest, and you know, I had that first Roots. I had that Organics album. I was listening to Organics a lot. But I was listening to that summer. It was Organics, MOP, and Inner City Griots.
That's a hell of a mixture.
And so here's Mike and Nine at my door.
That's crazy.
And how that happens is Daddy-O, who was, I guess, managing or mentoring the group, who had helped get them the deal. Daddy-O was partners with Lance Unrivera and Kedar Massenberg.
Okay.
And Kedar Massenberg was managing Micah. That's what it was. He was managing Micah, D'Angelo, and Erykah Badu. And Micah was he had to deal with Capitol, and he was living in New York to try to soak up some of that New York flavor. And he freestyled with us that morning. We became very, very good friends. He was on my last album, Radio Silence. But in 1995, when I quit my job and said I'm going to dedicate my life to this music, I took a Greyhound bus across the country because I was like, I have to go rhyme at the Good Life Cafe. And me and my man Juju, shout out to Juju, I took a bus straight to the Good Life.
Wow.
Almost got arrested for jaywalking.
So from Brooklyn
Yeah.
to LA,
Yeah.
that's like 3 days.
It was 3 days. Yeah. Juju got pressed for had the wrong colors on.
Oh, yeah.
In that
Oh, yeah.
neighborhood where the Good Life is at. And I didn't do particularly well at the Good
I didn't
Life.
do well my first time at the
It's
Blow.
very
neither.
competitive.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for the
Yeah.
room full of rappers. I wasn't ready for that.
Not just rappers, but that LA Good Life scene.
that energy.
The LA
yeah.
Project Blow
Yeah,
scene.
that get off the stage.
Get off the stage, nigga. Like, and you can't curse.
Right. Oh, right.
No.
Because I didn't come till Project Blow. So Project Blow started in '96. I think my first time there was like '97. But you could cuss at the Blow. That was a big
Okay, you couldn't
difference.
cuss at
You
the Good
couldn't
Life.
cuss at
Cafe.
the Good Life. Yeah.
So yeah, they had to get they created the Blow to get that cuss energy out.
Yeah, they did.
But just for people who don't understand what Project Blow it is, and
Mm-hmm.
it comes from the Good Life and that whole crew, from Freestyle Fellowship to Abstract Rude to Bus Driver to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Break that down for me.
So the intention of it is a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So it's intended for people who rhyme and take the craft seriously to come, get on stage, do something you've been working on, get on freestyle. Like, that's the function of it. But it attracted just lethal rhymers. It attracted like this. I looked at it like a martial arts school for rhyming. I look at it like a graduate school almost for rhyming. So, you kind of enter a space, it feels a lot like a dojo. Like, it's people paying attention to the stage, but like I said, that room is not very big and it's full of rhymers. And like the quality control is taken very seriously. So there's that whole thing going on in there with people getting on the mic and trying to dazzle the crowd that's not there to be dazzled. You know what I'm saying? And then the other side of that is outside, where there's numerous ciphers. Just numerous ciphers at all skill levels, and everybody's just getting it in all night. And that's the Blow. Like, that's the finishing school. That's the dojo. And
Yeah, that's dope. For me, it was Washington Square Park. It wasn't, and then it was Lyricist Lounge.
There
it
you
was
go.
The park, then the lounge.
see, I'm fascinated by that, like by where those scenes were, where those pockets were, because that my original rap school, like I said, was Promontory Point in Chicago. But then, I moved on to the Blow
Yeah.
and got a whole different experience there.
Yeah, and then your podcast we mentioned first with Prince Paul, then with LP. That's just the era I come from. On Unapologetic Art Rap, which is a great title for an album. By the way, you have won the award for album titles.
Hey, man,
You got it.
I'm trying.
You got it, bro.
I
You got
appreciate
the best
that.
rap album titles. Unapologetic
I take
Art
pride.
Rap. So many nods to De La on that album. I don't think the casual fan would get
Probably
that.
not.
So I get when I hear you with Prince Paul, I get it because that was your first real official release, right?
Yeah.
So
that
I'm
was
like,
it.
okay, this is a guy who was like, not just studying the music, but studying what Prince Paul was doing in between. You know?
Sketches, all of that, man. Native was
Native
just
Tongues,
so big
yeah.
for me because, I was born in 1980. So by the time I'm like cognizant of the world, it's like 85, 86, and rap is everywhere. It's everywhere. I go to schools in hoods. I live in hoods. Rap is the first rap I remember hearing my mom play Easy E for me when I was like 6. So like it was the world, but the world was also hella dangerous, and like everything just felt so rugged and raw all the time. And then when Native Tongues happened, like when I see like the video for Buddy,
Yeah, that changed my world.
it really did, because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it ain't all that, like the street shit is the street shit and it's everywhere. But it felt good to have like, oh, this place where something fun might happen. You know what I'm saying?
man.
Like you can let your hair down. Like
That's
it's different.
exactly how I felt.
Different ways, and it's okay to express yourself in these different ways, and it's all on the radio at the same time. So like, it's not like one's better than the other, but there's room for all kinds of people. So when I saw that video, I felt like, oh, I have a place at this table. I have a place in this world, So like that's been the most important rap music to me in my life, was like that Native Tongue stuff, specifically from that era.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I have a new album with Diamond D, Gotham.
Diamond D is one of the most slept on producers in the world. And I know that's crazy to say because
He
it's
is.
Diamond D and they're digging in the crates. Everybody knows it. But it's like Diamond D will have the bangingest song on your album and people won't even know it's him because they're not into the liner notes like that. But
he did The Business on that Tropical Quest record. He's done, he did hip hop for Mos Def. So many great records. The Score,
yeah.
the title track to the
Yup.
Fugees.
I like how he rhymed on that too.
Me too. Next Level, that remix to Alcoholics, that's the shit. But I have a lyric on my new album with Diamond where I said, we out here taking actual losses. Am I privileged enough to die from natural causes? And I wrote that lyric before I knew you had an album called Rappers Will Die of Natural Causes.
Yeah.
Why does the simple act of dying old of natural causes feel like something revolutionary that we have to fight for?
Because I think just, especially at the time I put that album out, that was 2011. And I think, you know, Guru had just passed. I know Dilla was a couple years before that. I think Nate Dogg was big. And it was like, oh, yo, wait a minute. This industry that we said is about youth. It's about vitality, right? These people who seem like timeless. These are black men, you know, and black women, and we're not known for living that long in this culture. We're not known for that. So, like, we're entering that era. At that time, we were entering that era where rappers were getting into their 40s, 50s, and it was starting to happen. And I think that you were starting to be able to see the pattern at that time of how, like, a rapper would pass away and how quickly it would go from them being taken for granted to them being celebrated. And that bothered me a lot.
Yeah.
It bothered me a lot. Like, somebody's records would just start super selling on iTunes and
What
everybody
Jada
had
Kiss
their
and
flowers.
Styles say, he be alright though. You know, dead rappers get better promotion.
Man, that
But
just
he'll be
hurt.
alright though.
Right.
That's the part. That's the punchline.
Eesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I definitely at that time, I wanted to call that out. I wanted to, like, put us in the mindset, or anybody who was in the reach of my voice at the time, like, let's not wait. Let's not wait. You know, like, these people that we love, not only they're not going to be here forever, likely they're leaving soon.
Yeah.
So, like, let's not play games with this music you love. Like, if you love people, please tell them. Please don't let this industry, which really only cares about how much money you're making right now, until it's chews you up and it's done with you. Let's not wait or follow their lead. Like I used to love the VH1 Hip Hop Honors. I used to love that, right?
Yeah, I did that. I did You God
Word.
and the Wu-Tang tribute.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
See, that's dope. Like, I love that they would take artists who, you know, were a little bit out of their height, right? And they would put them in what felt kind of like a Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But it was only ever acts that made money.
Yes.
Like, that does a disservice to the conversation. You know what I'm saying? When you're not in, because then you can't necessarily include a Prince Paul, right? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I felt the way when I was watching the Grammys, and I feel bad about feeling away. I felt the way, and I was watching the Grammys, and they have the list of people who passed away, and they put Doom in there.
Yeah.
Because I felt like you're just doing that to pander to someone like me. You didn't know who he was at all. You didn't care.
Didn't care.
You didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't care. Like, and they see the outpour, and then their antenna go up, and they're paying attention. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like the work that these people have made, this music, is important. You know what I'm saying? And, like, that's the journalism thing for me. Is like, every effort needs to be made to have these stories told. So that these people, these black men who defied the odds, black women who defied the odds in this society where everything is built for them to fail, and they figure out a way to be successful with their creativity, like, you gotta celebrate that. You gotta celebrate that. Just that work, that value is just too important.
And I know people are already watching, but that's exactly what People's Party is for, so that we can give people their flowers
That's right.
while they're still here, whether they've sold 10 million records or not. So,
And she's right. That's the thing that I'm most proud about with the show, because we've had activists and artists that people who are even fans of mine may not have heard of, but I know what they represent to the culture.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's why I feel privileged to be here. You know, I know I'm not the biggest name. I know I'm underground, I'm independent, you know what I'm saying? But it's I think the spirit of it counts for something.
Yeah.
You know, and being part of a lineage and all of that. You know?
Absolutely.
dark comedy has some really serious, heavy themes that you continue to explore. Do you remember the point in your career when you were like, I'm really gonna own my shit and really wrestle with the feelings I need to wrestle with?
I mean, that shit happened to me like last year. That was like when I really decided. It's funny because dark comedy was me. That's the height of me like pointing at the world. Mm-hmm. And I have my own issues, but I'm talking around them.
Yes.
You know, and I'm pointing the finger out to the world and critiquing everything going on in society to avoid talking about myself for the most part.
That's interesting.
And it wasn't until really the Anime Trauma and Divorce album, because I was making this album that's kind of just exploring the relationship between black people and anime. Like that was kind of where I was starting from, because I always felt that was wild. Every hood I was ever in, like little black boys that know about Goku and Naruto, and they really let stuff resonates for them. And I'm like, damn, there's something with this power fantasy thing. But then I started going through personal shit, and it was my therapist who was like, hey, you have an outlet that people would kill to have. Like you have a craft, you have an art form, you have a way to process things. So why don't you try putting these feelings into music? And it was like, oh, that's right. I never do that.
Yeah.
That's why my last album is so deeply personal, because I really actually needed to confront personal feelings. Like, and that's where that Sweatpants Spider-Man song came from too. It was just like, okay, I'm privileged to not have to be going through this shit by myself.
Right. I think that's very noble. I'm 6 years in comedy, and I haven't been on stage for a year. But lately, because like you, I've always pointed out stuff in society to not focus on myself. And like my Instagram now, if I'm having a dark thought or if I have like something I want to share, I've been like sharing it. And it's been an outpour of other women that have gone through the same things that I've gone through and message me like, oh, thank you so much for saying that. And I can't wait to get back on stage and be able to create that into comedy.
That's real. I found a strength in that too. And there's been things that have been difficult to share, but when you put them out there, you do get that sense that it resonates with people, and that makes it a little easier on everybody.
You're helping somebody.
The Dark Comedy album seems to be a fan favorite.
Yep.
That's the one the fans really resonated with. Hannibal's verse. What was his DJ name? DJ Burger Feet?
DJ Burger Feet. That was his name. Yep.
His verse, though, on that is a very good verse as verses go. I like the fact that he checked himself on the verse before he got canceled. He's like, Honda Civic is the girl's car. Actually, let me not influence you. You know what I'm saying?
Right. If it's affordable, if it works for your life,
it's very practical advice. The National Institute of Health once monitored you while you were freestyling.
This is true.
They determined that freestyle rap boosts brainwave activity.
Yeah, so they had been studying improvisation in different art forms. They had somehow made it where you could get a keyboard inside the MRI machine, and they were studying jazz musicians, like their brain activity while jazz musicians were improvising. So me and a homie pitched them freestyling as a way to measure that same improvisation. And I had to rap. I was the first one because I was in the pilot study. So I had to rhyme in the MRI machine for 2 hours. And try not to move because that messes up everything. So
wow.
like I'm trying to
while you're laying down?
Yes.
What?
Yeah. But just freestyling for 2 hours. And you had to go back and forth between freestyling and then kicking something memorized so that they could measure the differences. Right. And so they're studying a thing called the flow state. Like when it's like your front brain is active. Basically, they're charting what turns on and off when you're engaged in a kind of activity where you're being creative, but you're also turning off your editing functions. So there was a lot of jargon, and I don't really understand the results, but we did it.
Are you familiar with Supernatural?
Yeah, of
Or
course.
how familiar are you with Supernatural?
Oh my gosh. I mean, he destroyed one of my heroes once, Juice.
That's right.
Chicago's
own Juice.
That hurt my feelings, man. That hurt my feelings.
Wow. Rap Olympics. Shout out to Sway and King Tech. I bring him up not just because of the freestyle connection, but in 94, 95, I was working at Nkiru Books, and on my lunch break, I would go over to Supernatural's house. And Supernatural introduced me to anime. Supernatural back then, he was fully immersed in it. So it's interesting that y'all have this connection.
That's amazing.
He introduced me to Dragon Ball. Dragon Balls wasn't like a kid thing at
Dragon
that
Ball
point.
Z?
It was,
Right.
it was like he introduced me to Ninja Scrolls, Ninja Scrolls, which you shout out on Art Rap Party, right? Yeah. We watched a lot of Akira over and over again. You speak a lot about how Dragon Balls influenced you. You said you're 5 years younger than me. I feel like for my generation, the people 5 years behind us, the anime wave hit the States crazy.
True.
For my generation, we had to search it out.
Right.
It's more underground. And I think that's part of why I'm not as into it.
That makes sense.
As people younger than me.
I feel like Dragon Ball Z hit like syndicated TV in like 97.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have been paying attention to, like, I'm coming home from high school watching it, And at that same time, there were stations in Chicago. There was a station, like a local station, that had like an anime programming hour every weekend. So they would show them movies like Ninja Scroll, Fist of the North Star,
Fist of
like
North Star.
that type of thing. So
Yeah.
we still had to search for it. We still had to go to the video store to find stuff, but it was on TV more. And I think that is what made it a little bit more accessible.
I got into. Obviously, I got suspended from Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anymore.
Did
I used
you?
to go too hard.
What?
I used to
Notice.
I go hard.
Would you still go hard if you were back on there?
Yes,
Oh,
he
absolutely.
would.
You would go the same hard?
I would. Yes, I would.
That's incredible.
That's why I don't need to be on it.
That's why you won't get on Clubhouse. I'm like,
That's
come
exactly
to
why I
Clubhouse.
don't, people.
But
I
no.
get 10 Clubhouse invites a day. Like, y'all don't want me there. If y'all couldn't take me in text, y'all definitely can't take hearing my voice. You know what I'm saying? But back when I was on Twitter, I got trolled because there would be these targeted harassment campaigns against me. And part of the reason I got suspended last year was that they won with their campaign. But there had been many before them that have attempted. Their campaign last year was successful. One of the unsuccessful ones was, so there's like a racist anime, like Twitter online thing.
Yeah, where like they'll have like an anime avatar, but it'll be like really racist people.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. And it's somebody back in the days, they put a racist avatar rankings. It was like if you have a dog avi, a Boston sports team, an American flag, a gun, or an anime,
Wow.
you're probably racist.
Wow.
And I was like, that's pretty accurate from my anecdotal experience. But here's where I fucked up at, because normally I'm always on point. But I fucked up where I was trying to explain why I think the anime thing might resonate with some of these racists, right? And you have like in the white supremacist community, particularly with Nazis, they look at Japan, some of them look at Japan as like the nationalism and how Japan, like they like, okay, why can't more minorities be like the Japanese? And then they fetish over Japanese women, right? So then you have that juxtaposed with, well, we fucked Japan up with the
Right,
atom bomb and
yeah.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all that. And so the anime that I was watching was Supernatural. It had one thing in common. Cities would get destroyed by some
Post-apocalyptic.
monster.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, clearly this is about this bombing. But then another thing I noticed back then was all the main characters that had all the dope powers with blonde hair, big European blue eyes. They didn't look Japanese to me at all.
Right.
Then of course Dragon Ball Z, you have this problematic blackface character.
Oh yeah, that's
Right?
very true.
My understanding of anime was I enjoyed the art of it, but I'm like, there's some very
There's some other
Eurocentric,
stuff going on.
racist, other shit going on.
Absolutely.
In me trying to critique that, I used a phrase that I shouldn't have used. And I was like, yo, why does the main characters who are the heroes always have white skin as opposed to yellow skin?
Oh, okay.
And they were able to latch on to that.
Right.
Because I just wasn't thinking about the fact that yellow skin might be a problematic thing to say.
Right.
And they latched on to that. I'm like, Kwali's a racist. He's saying Japanese people have yellow skin. And because I had been so on point in my arguments without any flaws or holes, that became a thing.
Right.
And I started getting trolled like Talib is racist against like Asian people because he's saying the term yellow skin. So I say all that to give you context in terms, because I saw you do an interview where somebody asked you, there was a white guy who asked you. So me as a white guy, I was told by my black friend to bring up this thing. And you gave a take on it where I don't think you downplayed the racism, but I think you gave a different perspective than my experience with anime. And so I wanted to get into that with you.
I mean, I think one thing that you're really on point about is the post-apocalyptic nature of it and the Eurocentricity. But one of the ways in which anime came into being was Japanese animators specifically responding to the success of Disney. So early Disney movies. So what happened after the bombings and everything in Japan is that, and I don't know how this happened, but like Japanese people started consuming American culture voraciously. So American
That was on purpose.
Probably, right?
Yeah.
American television, American movies, they were eating it up. And then when Japanese animators wanted to compete in that marketplace, they used the Disney style of art as their template. So that's why to this day you still have those big eyes and all of that stuff. The guy who does Dragon Ball is obsessed with American culture. Like he's got like half of his characters have names of like English vegetables, like, are the names of the characters, and he's got a Bibbidi character, a Bobbidi character, and a Boo. Like he's
Bibbidi Bobbidi
yes,
Boo, right.
exactly. And yes, he's got the thing where the lead hero, as he powers up, he goes from dark eyes and dark hair to blonde hair and blue eyed. And I can't say I know what the deal behind that is. Like, I know what that looks like, I know what that feels like, but I don't exactly know what the deal is behind that. So I think there's a lot of questions still there. But I have to come at it from this perspective. Like, Dragon Ball Z is like a starter anime because it's
Starter
like
anime, I like that
it's
term.
like one of the ones that
Yeah.
that got popular enough to be exported
Yeah.
worldwide. I've watched a lot of anime.
So your scope is way
Is
big.
it
Yeah.
Sailor Moon anime too?
Sailor Moon
Now
is
I used to
anime.
watch Sailor Moon.
And the Sailor Moon, that's one of the main ones that the racist ones, the ones with the fetish, those characters, that
Right.
type of character pops up a lot.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of potentially problematic stuff to be explored there, but I can say with the majority of anime I've seen, it's way more about the human condition in general than it is about celebrating any one cultural thing over any other. Like in the wide view I've seen.
Word.
I don't watch anime and I don't watch porn, but my cousin does watch anime and he used to always show us anime porn.
Oh yeah, hentai is a problem.
Yeah.
hentai, that's a whole.
It's like really raunchy.
I mean, raunchy ain't even
Your
the
cousin
word.
was being honest about himself with his fellow family members.
What do you mean?
He's saying don't kink shame.
Yeah.
Your cousin.
Oh, I'm not shaming him. Oh, I'm not shaming him. I'm
Thank
just
you.
saying like that's how I saw it. Sorry.
Don't try to test this man into woke off.
That's right.
Where's my woken character? Okay, so we talked about your amazing names for your hip hop albums, but your podcast, the mini podcasts that you have, also all have cool names. Secret Skin, which is about the public personas of rappers. Tights and Fights about wrestling. What Happened Was, which blew up when you first featured Prince Paul and LP. What is it about this medium that you love so much?
The freedom of it. The freedom of it. You know, I was listening to a guy that runs a podcast network do a talk once, and he played some audio of a show that they had on his network where, like, the hosts, and you're just listening to it. They're like sitting at a recording table like this or with some sort of setup, and you hear them at the end of their show stand up from the table, get on an elevator, and walk outside. And they're just recording the whole time. It was just like mind-blowing to me because, like, all right, this is a brand new medium. There's no rules for it. You can literally do
Whatever you want.
whatever. And to me, like, that's the exciting thing because it allows me a space to try every idea I have, especially because it's, for the most part, unless, you know, you're in a fancy setup like this, it's kind of low cost too.
Right.
Like, you can demo a lot of stuff at home. Like, you know, I just think the potential of it is limitless, and that's really exciting to me. I want to do a Cypher podcast. I want to get like a bunch of dudes freestyle, like a different group of people every week in a room freestyling. You know what I'm saying?
Get out my brain, Mike.
I'm saying though.
Get out my brain.
I'm
First of
saying,
all,
though,
your
this-
podcast.
I'm pitching it to you. What's
The
up?
podcast idea you had about with the native tongues thing, and you said that they balked at that idea. Still a good idea.
Yeah.
So you still do find someone to do that with. But as you were describing the low cost and the freedom to do everything,
Yeah.
well, you know, we have this other podcast, me, Dave Chappelle, and Yasin
Yeah,
Bey,
yeah,
the
yeah,
Midnight
yeah.
Miracle, and that's exactly what that is. I mean, people don't think of low cost when they think of Dave Chappelle,
Right.
But the way in which, and we have very professional people working with us, but the way in which it's set up, it's not this set. We do it at Dave's Shack where we're hanging out anyway.
Right.
We just have the professional mics and professional people to work it. But other than that, it's a pretty low cost, you know, low overhead
Right.
situation. And Chappelle's show as a variety show changed what a variety show could be. This podcast, Midnight Miracle, I feel like we're set up to do that. Like the fact that there is no rules. So last week was a sitcom featuring Sada Baby. The week before was a very intense conversation about Dave and Mos and Yasin having with me about why I'm on Twitter. It's like, you know, next week will be us interviewing Dave Letterman.
Wow.
So it's like it could be
Anything.
It could be anything, man.
Damn.
But you know, that's the gift and curse of podcasting and it being so lax, because that's why a lot of people have gotten into trouble because they get so comfortable
Right.
that
True.
they say whatever the hell's on their mind, and that might not be PC.
Right, which is what happened to Nick Cannon and a lot of other people who have podcasts. Like, that happened to Joe Rogan. It has a lot of people. But back to what you were saying about your idea that you're pitching to me.
Yeah.
So on the Midnight Miracle, there was one week where it was Madlib was in town, and Black Thought was there, and Pharoah Monch was there, and High Tech was there.
Come on,
and
man.
Yassine we always bring in from a remote location where he's at. And so Madlib starts playing beats,
Come on.
and we all just start spitting.
Come on, man.
And Dave is like, this is a podcast.
Yeah.
So I need to get some of those clips. I'm going to play them for you. Maybe we need to talk
I'm
about
saying though. See what? This is how the magic happens, folks.
Now I can't freestyle as much as I used to. Common used to be my bar because Common is a professional MC who never let the freestyle go.
Right.
So I was like, as long as I'm as good as Common, I'm still in the game. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not as good as Common right now. I got to get my bars up. I impressed myself when we were doing it on a Miracle because I'm there with Dave and Yassine and Black Thought and Pharaoh, and I'm like, I can't. It's like that adrenaline. So I freestyled enough for one good freestyle verse.
You got one off.
But that's all I had. That's all I had. You know what I'm saying?
That's how it was when we were in Miami, because I freestyle with my friends all the time. I'm good some days. But when Talib was there, they were like, oh, let's freestyle. I was like, I don't want to freestyle.
You did a good job. You did a good job. You
Give
had to
her
remind
her
me.
flowers.
I did have to remind you,
Yeah.
but at least you remember. And he doesn't lie, so we're
Yeah.
good.
Now, speaking of this podcast, Conversation Parade
Yeah.
with John Moe about Adventure Time.
About the television cartoon Adventure Time.
Now, I got to shout out Donna Dragoda, who's my right hand,
Okay.
and my assistant and my partner. And Donna watches a lot of Adventure Time. Now, I've only seen a few episodes. I want to get to the level where I could be a guest on your podcast.
Oh man.
But I've only seen a few episodes.
Well, that one doesn't run anymore. That
Okay,
podcast
that was
doesn't
just a
run
one.
We did 2 seasons of it. We had gotten backing from Cartoon Network to do it because they were interested in exploring the space, but then they didn't want to do it anymore.
You were in an episode. You were rapping in Son of Rap Bear.
Yep.
That episode reminds me of my relationship with my son. I feel like I'm Rap Bear. And my son is Son of Rap Bear. My son, Amani Fela, who's on the Arm & Hammer project, produced by Alchemist. You came in here talking about Arm & Hammer.
Yeah,
And I'm
man.
like, my son is on that album.
That's awesome.
I love that. But I feel like my son raps better than me.
I mean, my son rap better than me too.
They should, though.
Your son is a very good rapper.
My son is, and he wasn't even, he was just playing on the album. Like, my mans can go.
Word. Now tell me about, what is it about Adventure Time?
It's deep, man.
What
It's,
is it?
it's really deep. It's really deep. Like, it's a lot of, it is one of the closest things I've seen to like a cartoon show with characters that feel like people. Feel like real people. They go through people stuff in
Yeah.
a way that's like it's not alienating towards children. But like one thing they love to do in that show that I think is awesome is they tend to introduce characters as villains.
Ice King.
Yes. Ice King is the perfect example. And then slowly over the course of like 4 or 5 seasons, you start to understand what happened to that man.
Right.
Like Ice King is a highly traumatized person.
Right.
You know, and like that sort of thing where they introduce things in very simple ways and they start peeling back layers and peeling back layers and peeling back layers. And it allows you to like resonate with these characters a lot because you're able to see how they became what they are. And that's what this whole show is about. Like, yeah, there's like this adventurous kid and this magic dog living in this candy kingdom, but there's a story behind all of it.
Yeah.
And it's deep.
Prepping for this interview, again, I had seen Adventure Time, and seeing it standalone episodes, it's enjoyable enough and entertaining enough that you're still going to get a couple chuckles out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you don't know the whole mythology. But I was like, I want to know what it is that he likes about this. So I was like, let me start where you would start with any TV show from episode 1. And they just threw you in the fucking water.
They do.
I'm like, so wait a second. Where are we at?
No,
Candy
Kingdom.
What is this cloud talking for like this?
Yeah,
What-
no.
And I'm like, hold on. So they're not going to explain shit?
I mean, they explain shit later.
Well, that's what I realized from
Yeah.
studying it, that they had the whole mythology. They had to have had it before
Yeah,
episode 1.
they did.
But they jump in. And what was the most interesting thing to me about rewatching it was the concept of God.
Mm-hmm.
And this God concept represented as a 4-faced deity.
Yes.
Gob, Grob, Glob, Grod. The characters were, oh my God, oh my glob. And I wanted to find out what that meant
Yes.
because, and then the people in Candy Kingdom are worshiping this thing. So you have this deity. You have the character of Jake, used to be a gang leader or some shit.
Yeah, he was a gang leader.
Right, criminal shit.
Right.
Right? You have Marceline, who's a 1,000-year-old vampire
queen,
whose
yeah.
father sucks souls like he's the father in Get Out.
Yep.
Right? These are really adult themes.
They are.
How does this successfully fit in a daytime kids show? Because Cartoon Network has Adult
Right.
Swim. That show could work on Adult Swim,
True.
but it also could work daytime. How?
I think they really make it where it genuinely appeals to adults and children. I think the character designs and general, and this will sound like a pun because they're in the Candy Kingdom, but the general sweetness of the characters. Like, if there's a villain, the villain's not going to come and dismember anybody. You know, they're just going to try to use magic on somebody and they're going to get melted, and it's going to be cute and funny. Like, visually, right? There's enough stimulation for a kid where they just feel like, oh, they just watched a cool little adventure show. But it works in both ways, where if
Yeah.
you know the story behind it and you see where they're going, it's like, oh, it plays on both levels at once.
Yeah, in the first episode, Finn yells out, "Get your sweet buns in here." And then the character comes in with a basket of sweet buns. I was like, okay, I see immediately what's happening.
They do it. They do it.
Yeah, I'm not. You guys lost me with that one. I'm not a cartoon watcher, except for Big Mouth. I love that, but that's not.
I like
for
Big
kids.
Mouth too.
New Negroes
Yes.
on Comedy Central has tons of my friends on there. Candace,
Yeah.
Chris Red, Rel, Langston, and it also is a great show with a great premise. Combined hip hop and comedy. Why do you think that it was canceled? And what would you do if you could do differently?
I would say it was a bad arrangement from the jump, like with us and the network, and not that they did anything nefarious or anything like that, but like we knew the kind of show we wanted to make and who we wanted to appeal to, and we pitched them that show, and they bought that show, but then they kind of in their programming put us in a position where we weren't going to be able to reach any of those people, and so I just don't think it was going to work in the constraints it needed to work with for them. They want all of their, for instance, they want all of their stand-up on Friday nights, which is great. That's their company mandate. They've been training their audience to do that. But if you put us on a Friday night at 10 o'clock and there's no other way to see the show, it's not streaming anywhere, that's our audience is not
Out
at
the
home.
club.
They are
exactly
not
right.
at home on Friday at 10.
They're getting
And,
it
like,
in.
so if that's what y'all got for us, this doesn't seem like it's designed for success.
It's crazy you say that because Chris Red, Fonte, MF Doom, you, Lucas Brothers, people I see involved with the show.
Lizzo is on the show.
I know that Lizzo opened for me in Texas back in the day. Like, that show didn't make my radar
Right.
at all.
I know.
That's crazy to me.
It was shocking to us too to come to that realization that like everybody who we just immediately assumed would be aware because they had, they ran TV commercials, they had billboards up here and in New York in the subway. Like
I remember seeing the commercials, and maybe I saw a billboard or two. But again, I wasn't familiar with you as an artist,
Right.
so it didn't be like, oh, I need to be checking for that.
Right.
If you could say, I think it would have done great on Netflix.
I think if there was anywhere where people can watch stuff on demand without like a cable login, like, just how people watch stuff now. And
It was on ComedyCentral.com, though, right?
yes, but you need a cable login.
Yeah, you
need
can't
cable,
just
that's
watch
right.
it for free.
Yeah.
Even on YouTube, Comedy Central makes you pay for it.
So we had a bunch of clips that went out that did great, but in terms of people watching the show, for the most part, they just weren't able to,
Yeah.
And that's the way Viacom was doing business before. Like now they have Paramount Plus,
Yeah.
BET Plus, I think. So
Yeah.
they have different ways where they would distribute things. But back then, their whole business model was
You gotta
how
watch
many
it here.
people can we get to watch this while it's on TV right now? And
Yeah.
other than that, nobody counted.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a good fit strategy wise is my main takeaway from it.
Well, you got to work with MF Doom.
I did, and
got to make
which was
it-
my dream come true.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's my it is my favorite rapper of all time.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah,
You got to make an anti-police brutality song with Doom.
True.
Which, if you're a fan of Doom, Doom got the Ansar influence, the 5% influence. He, he comes up in that era. He knows that she's a progressive, conscious artist,
Yeah.
but that's not the category people put Doom in.
Right.
So I was glad to see Doom on that shit.
Right.
So I appreciate you doing that.
Oh man, I felt so privileged and fortunate that he wanted to, you know, like that was it for me. Like our artistic achievements when it comes to that show, I could not possibly be more prouder of. Like the stuff me and Fonte did, like stuff me and Lizzo did, Method Man, like we put so much of our best creative selves into that stuff, which is kind of what made it heartbreaking when we kind of saw, oh, that's all that's gonna happen with it,
Right.
you know. But I cannot, like I said, I cannot be prouder of like what we made, the show we made. We made the exact show we wanted to make, you know.
Fonte is who I want to be when I grow up.
Yo, that guy, like, who can rap and sing and be funny that well?
Right.
Like, it's incredible.
Right. Woke as me.
Yeah, Fonte.
I feel like I should have been on that remix. I feel like I had some bars.
I
for
feel
that.
like
Remix it.
I feel like I had some
Remix
bars
it.
for that. I'm like, yo. But here's the thing. The video game between the sex worker and the hoteps, this is a pet peeve of
Woken.
mine. Because I'm black and because I'm pro-black and because I'm aggressive with my opinions, people call me a hotep. And I don't get offended by many things, but I'm offended by that. Now,
I have a problem with that word too.
See,
And I had to kind of give up because I used to fight about that word. My fights on Twitter was about that word.
I want to hear your take on it because I got a very nuanced take.
Okay, well, mine is this. Like, so I came up in the early 2000s on college campuses.
Okay, so you and me have a similar take.
So, you know, like,
Yeah.
we used to say hotep to each other.
Hotep,
and like
that's a greeting.
The genuine greeting. Like, and it was said with love. And it wasn't said in a way to try to demean anybody or get over or trick. Well, some people didn't have the best intentions. But it wasn't just about the word. It was about being Afrocentric at
right.
a time when that wasn't what society was on, right?
right.
So when I heard hotep like kind of twisted into like a slur, I'm like, hold on. But that's and what made it worse was to find out that there's men who took that as a term of endearment and said, "Call me hotep,"
Yeah.
and I'm gonna put my misogynist views into this.
I know the dude who's responsible for it personally.
Yeah.
It's one guy. So I agree with you. I grew up, hotep is a positive thing.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to Gary Bird on WBAI.
Okay.
He used to call himself Imhotep Gary Bird because he was fascinated with Egyptology and the scientist, mathematician Imhotep.
Right.
Always a positive thing inside of the Afrocentric academic community.
Right.
But as someone who appreciates comedy, you gotta admit, when they first started calling them type of like what they call ashy niggas, like when they first started calling them hoteps, that shit's kind of funny.
And I can't. Yeah, I mean,
You know
I
what
saw
I'm
it.
saying?
I
Aren't the
saw
hoteps
it.
the ones
It's
that
just
are
kind of
yelling-
funny, like
They're the ones that's yelling on the street, right?
Oh,
Trying-
that's
That's a
the
sim-
Israelites.
that's a simplistic.
But it's kind of like they group them in that.
So you know what? Here's what it is. So the people you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
The Afrocentric people who wear it on their sleeve. They might smell like frankincense. You could smell them coming in the room. before
Yeah,
they
it
come
smell
in the
like
room.
incense. Exactly.
Yes, they do.
You know,
Exactly.
they'd be like, Hotep sister, peace.
Right.
The problem is a lot of these type of people still had very toxic
Views. Yeah.
views and attitudes towards gay people, towards women, and they took the sort of cultural black nationalism to mean I need to imitate my oppressor and be as like, you know, male centric and male dominant, and so the sisters in that community, as not even that community, but sisters who get approached by these type of dudes on the street, started being like, that's that hotep shit.
Yeah,
Like
that's real.
That's, you know what I'm saying?
Because we burned it for sure.
Yeah.
We burned it.
Yeah.
Like it's our fault, right?
Right.
But like, I hated that they took the power from the word.
Because you knew what
though.
it meant to you.
Exactly.
And so it's the same, for
Exactly.
me, it's the same thing as the guy who made Pepe the Frog. And then the Nazis took that over and he kept trying to be like, no,
tried so hard, yeah.
Pepe the Frog doesn't represent that. And at some point he just gave up. You know what? You're
Yeah.
right. There's some Nazi shit now.
Yeah.
And so that's for me what Hotep became. But those people before, so this guy, you know, and I'm not even gonna say his name on my show because he doesn't deserve that. But his story is worth telling. There's a guy, no, fuck it, I'm gonna say his name. Because it's not as good without his name. This kid named Brian who called himself Vibe High on Twitter.
Okay.
And I saw a video where he was burning his Jordans And he made a very eloquent speech about why we shouldn't be supporting Nike. And I got Nikes on. I'm still black. You know what I'm saying? But I felt him. You know what I'm saying? I was like, yeah, I fuck with that.
Okay.
Started following him. And he had some positions I thought that I agreed with. But then he started dissing Black Lives Matter early, like in 2014, which is it was a very popular thing to do, right? And there's some valid criticisms to be made about how activist work is rolled out and presented in public space. But his critique of them was they be on that gay shit.
Right.
That's his main critique. You know what I'm saying? And so I didn't realize that was his critique. I liked him as an activist. This is when I was going to Ferguson back and forth, and I'm having these meetings, and I'm trying to bring the community together. So I invited this man to my home, sat him down. I'm like, yo, the way you be going at the sisters from Black Lives Matter, like we all in this together. He's like, yeah, but they be on that gay shit. And you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I realized, oh, this is a bigot. Okay, so I have to deal with him differently.
Right.
So we agreed to disagree, and I was like, look, because I'm cool with you and I'm cool with them, can you just not publicly talk shit about them? And he did it for a couple of months, but then he did, and then he started talking shit about me, and then he started embracing the whole, because he was called the Hotep. So he said, well, I'm Hotep Jesus.
Right.
And he became Hotep Jesus.
I remember that. I remember that name.
Right. And he became big on Twitter because then he became a Trump supporter. And then he started doing interviews on Fox News.
See, that's full circle.
And then he did the Blexit shit with Candace Owens. He was at the White House, like cooning at the White House, dancing and shit. And I say all that, he is the type of motherfucker that I associate with that Hotep shit. And people, because I'm pro-black and loud sometimes, they be like, he's Hotep. Nah, them Hotep niggas came at me before y'all knew what a Hotep nigga was. You know what I'm saying? I think I just got off subject. It's about a woke-off. So my question is, who wins in a woke-off between me and you?
Oh, you do. They easy.
You answered that too easy.
Easy. Nah, I ain't got the energy no more, man. I mean,
Salif definitely has the energy.
yeah, he got the
for
energy, man.
battle.
I ain't got it. I need to take whatever vitamins you take, man. I get tired.
Oh, man. I love your verse in that song.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
You know, and the way we did them songs, man, like, because I had to have the song mostly written because it's for TV. So we had to have videos playing and everything. I had to have the songs mostly written before we even started shooting the TV. So, like, you know, I did my half of that song in the hook and then, you know, sent it back to him. And I mean, like, it couldn't have sounded more perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like, for like his verse is literally the one he sent us. Like, you know what I'm saying? And he came out
nailed
here.
it.
Yeah, like first try it was just perfect. Absolutely perfect.
No doubt.
Kavanaugh, which is you and Serengeti, did a concept album about handymen in Florida called Time and Materials and returned again in 2020 for quarantine recordings. As a performer, how was it for you to perform during quarantine?
I hated it. I hated performing on Zoom. I actually just figured out how to make my beats come through a Zoom, like come through properly last week.
How'd you figure it out?
It was a setting on my interface that it was a button I didn't push right. So like I was only sending like half the beat through the Zoom.
You got like an iRig?
Nah, it's like a little Native Instruments interface. But like I had all of the equipment to do this properly the whole year.
Oh, no.
But I can't tell you how many trash musical performances I have shot out into the internet over the last year because I didn't press the damn button.
Thank you for trying, though.
Everyone was
so it started to hurt after a while.
It was so many trash performances. No offense to people. I mean, whatever. The fence is taken. But anyway, there was a lot of trash performances. But what I did like about the trash performances is that it gave people that didn't have the right equipment to go ahead and start putting their stuff out there because everybody was kind of learning Zoom together. Everybody was kind of learning online performance together. It really gave people that push that they needed. And also with that being said, what ways do you feel you grew creatively during that time?
I certainly started understanding the strength and the value of like a live streaming more. I did for like 8 months last year, did a thing called Quarantine Drive Time Radio, where I just went live on my Instagram and did a radio show. Just did a fake radio show, Monday through Friday. Mostly, like the basis of each show was just reminding people what day it is. So Monday was all about Monday. Tuesday was all about Tuesday. And we just did that over and over again because I come from doing music for a living where like I never knew what day it was anyway, but I watched that happen to people where they stopped going into work and suddenly they didn't remember. So I'm like, okay, we'll do this as a service, you know, but we really started connecting with people because everybody was at home and then suddenly like people was just waiting. for when we was going to go live with the radio show. So it's like that kind of thing. I really learned the importance of like making spaces for my fans to like connect with each other and like embrace their fandom. Like that was a big lesson for me last year that like, you know, I guess that's something that I've always been told, but I never actually executed.
Let's talk about anime trauma and divorce.
Okay.
I feel like this conversation has been leading in that direction.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
It's a fantastic album. Brings listeners into your personal life in new ways, which you said hadn't been done before.
Right.
Head Ass. Great song, great video.
Appreciate it.
Why did you feel like you needed to explain that to the white people?
You know what? My actual
So
this is my intention. My intention was to embrace that word because I think I am a head ass. Like I think that's what I am. Like I think when I first kind of realized that like that's
Right.
what people meant when they said a head ass.
You
I'm
looked
like,
around and it was you.
it was me. Exactly. So like I wanted to embrace the term, but I think that's not exactly what happened. I think a bunch of white people just have heard of it now.
Thank you for
that's
that.
what happened. Well, I don't know.
Right.
Jury's still out.
My favorite thing is to see white people call other white people Karens.
I love that. Like y'all gotta appropriate everything.
No, here's my new favorite thing. White people will come on my page and call me a Karen.
Whoa.
Happens all the time. This happens all the time. They be like, Quali, you're just a racist Karen. I was like, that's not how that term
At
is used.
all.
I would not want to be you on the internet for a day.
Talib loves
I would
it.
not want. I can tell he does. He said he would do the same thing on
He would
Twitter
do it
again.
over and over again.
Yeah, man. Living my life publicly,
Yeah.
I think, ruined my marriage.
Damn.
A Black Mirror episode ruined your marriage.
That's true. That's true.
Right?
Well, actually, it didn't ruin it, but that's when that was a serious signpost that the changes needed to happen.
I got divorced this year. I've been separated from my now ex. Well, I'm getting divorced this year. We were separated for years. Haven't seen her for years. That hook, Black Mirror episode, ruined my marriage. It's a great hook, a great song.
Thank you.
I know you haven't told other people which episode it was.
I'm not going to tell you.
I know
neither.
you said. I know you said. I'm gonna tell you which episode is not. But just the people's party, baby. It's
I know,
Quali,
man. I
baby.
can't though. I can't. I really can't. Like it's,
Now, tell me why, because I feel like you should as a public service.
this is the problem. If I ever say what episode it is, it's gonna be a whole nother hour of conversation about exactly why it's that one. It ain't gonna make no sense,
Right.
You know, and I know that, and also like, you know, I have to do some things to protect the lady, you know,
Yeah.
And so I think if I ever do say what it is, it'll give too much of the real story away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love Black Mirror, so I would definitely know. I've seen every episode.
Oh, it ain't that many
We'll
of them.
figure it out. Let me ask you this. If someone were to, in a public setting, like an interview like this, guess the correct episode, would you be like, ding, ding, ding?
I want to say no because I'd have to understand how they arrived at that notion, and then I'd have to make a judgment call from there.
Would
So
you
what
tell
I hear
us
you
off camera?
Maybe.
So what I hear you saying, but then somebody might tell.
I wouldn't tell. Neither would you tell him.
Somebody might tell. So what I hear you saying, this is what I hear you saying. Whatever happened, it was personal to your situation.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you could watch the episode and be like, oh, this will definitely break people up.
Yeah, I think there's aspects of that episode that would break people up, but I also think that I think everybody's first thought about why it would be that episode would give people the wrong idea.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Understood. I also read somewhere that you took negative reviews of this album more personally because you felt like it was people giving negative reviews of your life.
Yeah, because I never put myself out there like that in my music before. So any other criticism of any other album could be taken as just, a misinterpretation or just they didn't like it, which was
Right,
fine.
subjective.
But this felt more like me, so it felt more like a judgment of me.
That's what makes it makes what you did so much bolder because you are giving them your truth.
True, it's vulnerability, but
Yeah.
that's part of the cost of it, right? Is that this being held up to judgment, like Anthony Fantano gave it a bad grade, and I was legit mad for like 2 weeks. I was hot,
Right.
you know.
On Ace's Bop, your son, Little Ace, makes an appearance. It seems to be a trend in rapper lineage to, let your children make a cameo.
Mm-hmm.
What made you want to put him on your track?
Well, he's a rhymer. He's been rhyming. I mean, he's 12 now. He's been rhyming since he was 4. He used to mumble rhyme, but like not in the modern rap way. He just didn't know all the words, but he knew where he had to be saying something. He knew about timing. He knew about cadences. And now he's rhyming in real words, and he's really dope. Like he's good. He doesn't take it seriously at this point. He's made a few songs, but he realizes that that's hard, so he doesn't like want to do it a lot. But he's dope. And like the thing he did on that hook of Ace's Bop, like he literally used to just run around the house singing that. And so like I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
That's
So
dope.
you say 4, but he didn't start before then? Like, was because I have a daughter and she sings. She sings loudly while she's playing her tambourine, and I swear like she knows what she's doing, and she's not even 1 yet. So like, how soon did you realize that he has this musical talent?
Well, he didn't. He used to learn the syllables to other songs. Like he used to know like every syllable in the song scenario. He used to know like he didn't know what none of the words meant, but he knew every syllable, and he would ask to watch that video over and over again so he could mouth it. But he didn't know what none of the. So I wouldn't say he was rapping then, because he was just kind of like listening and memorizing. He didn't start doing his own thing until like 4 or 5 years old.
You must be so proud.
I am, absolutely, because I rhymed nervously at 16 for the first time. Like I had a lot of reason in my head not to do it.
You said something interesting that just piqued my interest about. You said he's having fun. It's more organic. He doesn't take it seriously. Now, you as an MC, I think you're a phenomenal MC.
I appreciate that.
I hear you. I hear what you're doing technically, and I'm like, fuck, that's good. It's good rap. But I get the sense that part of what makes you is that you're not really out here hyper concerned, at least it appears this way. I think what you might say might actually be different, but you don't seem to be hyper concerned with what other MCs think and hyper concerned with competing in the hip hop space in the way that an MC like me does it. Whereas if you listen to my career, there's a lot of introspective songs, a lot of songs about deep subjects and romance and stuff, but people, when they think of me as a rapper who's like, that's a lyrical, miracle, spiritual, like I'm trying to out-rap these other niggas and like trying to like be competitive amongst MCs. And it's just sort of like this angst and this drive to be aggressive in that space. Right. I don't get that from you. I get that I'm talking about my life. I'm being true to myself, the whole native tongues conversation we had. But at the same time, I've also heard you speak about feeling like an outsider in hip hop space. Yeah. And feeling like what you do it's cool to be able to go on tour with Hannibal, but maybe if you had a chance for a hit record, you would take it. How do you feel like one thing might affect the other?
I think what you're really touching on now is kind of where my mindset is like right this minute, right? Where like the music I'm making right now, it's a lot more influenced by experiences I've had of late that have changed my priorities a little bit. Because there was a big question internally with me about, okay, I do Anime Trauma and Divorce, this album that's about my life and this darkest time I've ever been through. But after that, then what? You know what I'm saying? And I look at where I do think I'm a little, I don't think I'm given proper due as somebody as a craftsman of rap. Like I really take the craft very seriously. But you are correct in that the music I've made has not been putting that forward. And so the music I'm making now, I think is putting that forward a little bit more. You know, I think what you're picking up on is something that has been ringing around in my head for a minute now. And I've just in the last few months really started to try to make music that speaks to that.
Okay, word up.
Yeah.
You've been an awesome guest.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for being with
what
us.
What a good time.
Great time.
It was
right?
it was amazing.
It was an adventure time.
Yeah.
I do have one more question.
Sure.
It's more of just me wanting to give you props for a quote you said that really resonates with me. You said, as a person who is about to turn 40 and who has been dealing with the entertainment industry for a while, I'm super over having to explain to people why some shit is valuable when I know it's valuable. This quote is my life. You said this quote in reference to this Native Tongues podcast you were trying to get off the ground. Maybe there's a whole podcast around that quote. How important is it for you to make sure that alongside you being a creative, you're also uplifting and telling the stories of other creatives?
Because, okay, MCing is a very selfish act in a lot of ways, especially the way I do it. Like, my music is very self-indulgent, and that's always been the spirit of it. It's like, no, I'm going to validate myself because I think these little fucking weird-ass ideas are important, you know? So, like, I'm going to make space for people who think like I think, you know? And I've put a lot of my efforts into that. But, like, the other side of that is I've noticed, like, a growing responsibility to do something for other people, to do something from an intention, from a spirit that's just bigger than myself. And the way that I decided to do that was to take, like, I try to take every opportunity I get and somehow reflect it back on this music, this space, the lineage, the influences, but like, and I think it ends up being easier to do than it should be because there's so much of a void in media, in industry, in business that puts value in this music, the history of it, the stories of it, these people's lives. Like, putting out this Prince Paul podcast, like, helped me to understand something I knew deeply, but them people couldn't see.
Yeah.
They couldn't see that just because a Prince Among Thieves or the Gravediggers, just because the Gravediggers came out 25 years ago, doesn't mean there aren't millions of people who still love that shit.
That's right.
Millions of people who this resonated, this horrorcore album, right? That Prince Paul made thinking that it might be the last thing he does. It touched people. It still has a value even after the business moves on. And so my mission, and you know, and it's almost like two missions, because one of them is to still validate all the things I want to validate for myself. But the other thing is to try to take any opportunity I can to put this music and the people who make it on a pedestal that is separate from business, like separate from album sold, because there's a vitality, there's an energy, there's a sustenance that ain't got nothing to do with the money. And I always want things to be looked at through that lens.
I love it. Open Mic Eagle, y'all.
Yeah. Oh my God, great.
That was awesome.